Hey everyone, welcome back. Let's start with 18.2, the physical dungeon. As with this video, both 18.2 and 3 are unlocked for either damage types. However, in a full 8-man, you usually send your physical party to 18.2 and magical to 18.3. Both dungeons, however, are simpler than 18.1 and 4 since they boil down to dodging and tanking attacks while just doing damage. Anyways, let's head into 18.2, Blooming Mineral Field. Phase 1 is very simple and you'll want Headhunter off at the start. The boss sits in the center with a barrier which can be reduced via destroying the minerals, which aren't boss monsters, hence no Headhunter. It will occasionally fire lasers that can kill, so move out of the way or heal through them. On the right, the main laser will sweep top to bottom and the left bottom to top. It can also fire static lasers in a horizontal segment on either side. Sometimes, a player will get a circle targeted around them. The party must hug the player in order to negate damage done to the marked player. Keep breaking minerals until the barrier HP is low. And once it's low, keep a few so you can destroy them during the barrier downtime while hitting the boss so you can extend the damage window. When the barrier is gone, put on Headhunter, Fighter Pod, Awaken, do all your buffs, and go crazy. The attacks themselves don't change, but no new minerals spawn. Hence, breaking ones that are kept to extend the duration of the barrier downtime is essential. Here's another tip. Hugging the boss prevents sweeping lasers from hitting you. However, horizontal segment lasers will hit you even if you are hugging, so switch sides if you need to. The boss can also spawn little dust clouds that do damage. Either avoid them or tank them with healing involved. Once the barrier is back, the boss will cast his ultimate, which is just a bunch of lasers. There's a safe spot on both sides, so dodge by sitting in either of them. Also, if 5 minerals spawn on a single side, the entire area will be engulfed with lasers that hurt you and also destroy the minerals, but do not reduce the barrier. So rinse and repeat this until you beat it. There's no party synergy for Phase 1 of this dungeon, so let's move on straight away to Phase 2. Now for Phase 2, which isn't much harder, but it is a bit different. You notice that this fruit spawns all over the map in various amounts. Each fruit gives 5 stacks of the Adapt into the Ocean Current buff, which innately increases your attack power up to 20 stacks for the 4 fruits. The buff itself lasts 15 seconds but only loses 1 stack per duration, so 1 every 15 seconds. Here's what the buff icon looks like. First, allow the main DPS to get max stacks, which should then tell you by pressing a quote or emo, and then go in successive DPS support order. Only do damage rotations once you have all stacks since the buff greatly impacts your DPS. Now let's go over the main attacks. First thing to note is that the boss teleports a lot, so make sure you know your class's cast times and skill hitboxing. It also combines this with constant hyper armor that cleanses debuffs, so be sure to reapply as needed. Go behind the boss when it does this dust sweep attack. It's easy to dodge, but the dust can burst you down very fast if you aren't tanky enough. Periodically, the boss will go to the bottom left or right of the map and start charging. You must use commands and actives to break the charge, and it will be stunned when you do it successfully. This leaves you with a short but great opportunity to dish out some maximum damage. If you fail and the charge succeeds, one side of the map decreases jump speed and the other increases it. It's not shown here as you will rarely fail, and it doesn't cause much of an issue anyway. Next, we have lasers that come from every member that point in 2 or 4 directions. These directions are indicated by the pointers on each character. Properly dodged, each player should follow the pointers to the edges of the map. For example, I should go top left since my arrows point up and left. However, tanky and heal heavy parties can cluster and ignore this nowadays. Next up we have the blue and red circles. If the circle is red, hug the player, and if it's blue, that player should be running away from the party. The game also tells you this, but reading is hard in a raid boss fight. Here's a glimpse of what the blue circle indicator looks like. The ultimate attack here is called Starlight Zone. The person with the highest number of ocean current stacks will see a yellow Starlight Zone, which is the safe zone. Use a quote or emote to communicate to the party so everyone can cluster in here if you're the one with the yellow starlight visible. If multiple people have max stacks, the host or highest invite order member can see it, though I'm not quite sure how this works exactly. Here's the party synergy for this phase of the dungeon. And finally, an overview of this phase of the dungeon before we go into 18.3. Now, onto Nightmare Crib. Be sure at least 2 of you have any damaging orb for this dungeon. Ideally everyone does, and it's win for practical uses. This dungeon has a very obnoxious gimmick called Distraction, and whenever you take a hit, you'll get a stack of the debuff, which lowers your action speed per stack. Also, at 10 stacks, you gain another debuff for 15 seconds that turns all your attack damage into healing for the boss. You can also still gain Distraction stacks with the 15-second heal debuff. Every hit counts as a stack, not each attack, meaning multi-hits will stack it very fast. Using any consumable, however, lowers your distraction counter by 1, and using any at 0 stacks negates the next stack from applying once. Neither of these debuffs can be cleansed aside from a very specific mechanic that I will get into later. Keep in mind that Dream Eater loves to run around, so be wary of your skills again. There's only a few key patterns here to go over. This first one is Space Distortion, which has an indicator before slashing. Getting hit by this makes you nearsighted and can distract you from other patterns. Next is Marks. Circles mean stay close and squares apart. The debuff indicators also show this, and it'll happen to pairs in the party. Failing marks causes all involved and nearby players to explode, killing them. As you can see, there's a lot of patterns that overlap, so make sure you're on high alert. When you reach 10 distraction stacks, there's a small grace period before you get the second debuff. So use a consumable really fast to make this go down to 9 and stall the healing debuff from showing up. Another attack is the Storms. There are 3 total, 1 center and 2 on the sides. Sit in the center close to the edge, since the edges are always detonate first, and once they do, move to them before the center explodes to avoid all hits. All of them are multi-hit and will rapidly stack distraction if you're clumsy like me. Finally, we have Shadow Clones. Dream Eater summons 1 clone per party member and links them. Stand behind the real boss to make the clone strike him, and if all clones hit, you'll be cleansed of all distraction stacks and debuffs as well as stun the boss for a short window for DPSing. Sometimes Dream Eater targets an entire horizontal portion of the map, so move when it shows to avoid getting hit. Also, when he's at below half HP, they'll use Space Distortion twice instead of once. Just like 18.2.1, there is no synergy effect for this stage. There's a lot more here, so here's a recap. This dungeon might take longer, but you will clear. Just keep at it. Phase 2 isn't much harder, but it does have a twisted 150 bars. Nightmare Keeper is stationed in the top center, and you don't need to leave just yet. Distraction is still in effect, and it's worse here since you have limited space and there's no free cleanse this time. So just keep an eye out on your debuff bar this phase as well. Other than that, just hit the big claw in the center as hard as you can. For some general attack advice, watch for spikes that come out of the ground, which slow your movement speed. Nightmare Keeper will also shoot rows of orbs, so make sure to move in the opening to avoid getting debuff stacked. Whenever the boss fakes a black hole, it will fall with a real one that heals 5 bars per party member hit by, so be sure to get out of that ASAP. It also occasionally shoots thorns that cause bleed from the body. The real fight starts at 150 bars. It starts with all 4 members being trapped in the top with some space between them. Everyone gets a debuff of a hand with 1 to 4 fingers being held up. Call out your number to your party as that's the order you'll be caged. For me, in this case, it's 1. The only way to destroy these cages is with a thrown damaging orb, so any but light, really. This is why I mentioned having at least 2 members bring orbs. There are 1 orb per 2 cages, so the first after 2 have been caged and the second after the other 2, but you may need to adjust based on orb members in order. If you only have one Orber, you can time the orb to be thrown as you are caged to free yourself too, but this requires some practice, so don't rely on it right away. Once that's done, Nightmare Keeper spawns a fake Dream Eater that must be killed. While this Dream Eater is alive, Nightmare Keeper will continue to heal its HP and become invulnerable to attack. Kill Dream Eater in order to be able to damage Nightmare Keeper again and stop the healing. You can only damage Dream Eater in the bottom half and Nightmare in the top half of the map due to the Abyssal Fog debuffs that are shown. Note that the Dream Eater spawns at 150 bars, but that is his max HP, so things like ECS only apply when he's at 75 bars or lower. He also never spawns Shadow Clone, so no need to worry about that pattern. Otherwise, both bosses retain all the normal attacks, so make sure you studied up. And both bosses can use their attacks at the same time, so watch your debuffs closely. Nightmare Keeper also spawns this orb, which rapidly gives distraction when in contact and can explode, but I'm not really sure when. It can be pushed away by hitting it with skills and commands, but it may be vulnerable to only one type of those. To test this, just use both types and see which one works from skills or commands. Once Dream Eater is dead, go back to Nightmare Keeper. If your party takes too long on killing Nightmare Keeper, it will revive Dream Eater again, but this rarely ever occurs. Here's the party synergy for this phase. And now the final recap for this phase. This is a annoying dungeon for sure, but it's not impossible. Anyways, thanks for watching, and good luck out there.